thank you for this day. Thank you that you are our wonderful, eternal Father, the one who exists from the beginning, from before the beginning, the one who established that there is a beginning of time. And so today we just honor you, we give worship to you, we say thank you, and we ask that your revelation would be strong and powerful upon us today of what it means that you are imparting, giving life into us, that you do it through your very own Son, that your sacrifice as a father is what gives us eternal life. And so we say thank you to that. Lord God, bless each person that is part of the financial giving into the life of this body. May you be rewarding, blessing, restoring, and making all of us good stewards that honor you in all of this life that you've given to us for that purpose. And so this morning now, we open up our hearts in even deeper ways, thanking you for what you've already been about, and will you give us great expectation to be hearing from you this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. This morning, we're going to hear about God as our Father through various voices of fathers in our congregation. And the first person that we'll hear from is not a father, but is the one that helps me be a father. And June will read the scripture for us this morning.
So awkward.
It was awkward. But true.
I will be reading from Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 24. The parable of the lost son. To illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, "I want my share of your estate now, before you die." So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.' So he returned home to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found.' So the party began."
So I Googled Good Father. And what do you think the first hit was? The Godfather movie. And it's like, I don't think that's quite the image we're looking for. We got to go deeper, right? And so there was a movie called Good Father. Did you know that? I didn't. Anthony Hopkins was in it, and apparently it wasn't that great of a hit. But in the reviews, the late film critic Roger Ebert said that the film asked this question. If we could go to the quote on the slides. "Is it ever too late for a man to learn that he can never love himself until he first learns to love somebody else?" I think sometimes in our U.S. society we want to put that the other way. That we think that sort of the attention all must be on ourselves first, and then when we get it all together and sort of the whole world serving us, then we have something to give to somebody else. But really, our identity is formed by what is given around us when we're young, right? A child doesn't really recognize itself as sort of a distinct individual until maybe 18 months or 2 years or something like that. But a child is recognizing its mother's voice when it's still in the womb, is responding to the smiles of caregivers when, as maybe you mothers tell me, before 3 months old or something like that, right? It's very early. This identity, this outside influence is forming the identity of the child. Is the world a dangerous place? Is the world a loving acceptance place? Am I wanted in this environment? And that begins to build deeply into what this child is. And so God starts off this life in us, right? He makes us in his image, male and female, in this image of God. God, our Father, the one that imparts into us and says, take on my life, take on my identity in this world, live in ways that reflect me. But then the tragedy of the human story is that we decided to return the favor to God and said, God, how about if we remake you in our image, rather than accepting that our image is to be created by you. And that's the fall. That's where the problem comes. And the story of restoration and redemption is about God coming through Jesus and reaffirming that his image is the one that we're to follow, that our life as disciples, as followers of Jesus, is to be remade and reformed, reconciled back into that image of God. So we get our sense of identity from God, from interacting with him. We share our life with others, and that helps to shape the self-identity we carry. So when we're injured in spirit, we need to be healed. When we pass, or else we pass that hurt on to others, and we cause a dysfunctional community to be happening rather than a nurturing, healing one, because we are one body together, made in his image. So, Trevin, where are you? Let's hear from you. You have an image of your father. Please come up and give your testimony this morning. Could you have that mic, June? Okay.
Yeah. So thank you, Bishop. One of the things that Bishop just said was being able to love somebody and learning how to love yourself. And I thank God for my father because he wasn't perfect. But it's funny because I'm a lot like him. All right. And I have kids now, so I understand a lot of frustration I put him through. But the people that I really, really thank God for were my grandfathers, because both men came from a different past. But when they gave their life to Christ, it has started our family on this path that cannot be thanked enough. And the way that correlates with what Bishop just said is my mother's father was a deacon, so he taught me how to serve. But he was also a working man that was a carpenter. And one of the things he used to do when I get in trouble in the summertime is he would bring me and he would work me like I've never been worked before. And he taught me a little bit about discipline and character, but he also would let me know that as a man, you keep God first and you do your job. And because I'm your grandfather and I know better, I'm going to train you. My other grandfather was not my blood grandfather. I only met my actual grandfather one time. All I know is his name was Mike. I only met him one time. I think my dad said I was about 5 when I met him. But you couldn't tell me that this man, Russell Rudolph Smith Jr., was not my grandfather. And he was amazing. And he was a working man. He was a mechanic. So everything house-related, I was with my mom's dad, everything car related or machine related, I was with my dad's dad, and my grandfather was a minister. And the one thing that they always would feed into me is the love of God. And I did not know what that looked like as a man until I saw my grandfathers. They sacrificed, they gave, they didn't ask for anything in return. And the only thing that I could do for them is just do well. And they would smile and they would tell me that they loved me 100 times over. Never in my life have I seen a grown man cry as much as my grandfather. And he would not do it because something went wrong. He would see me playing the drums, or he'd see me graduate. He'd see me run down the football field or run and play basketball, and tears would be streaming down his eyes. I'm looking at him like, "Granddaddy, what's wrong with you?" And he says, "If you only knew, son." And I thank God for that, because they poured into my dad. And as my dad poured into me, one of the things I mentioned at men's prayer breakfast is my grandfathers were very wise. And my grandfather mentioned something to me that I take into account. And he says, he told my dad, "If you really want to know how well you did, look at your grandchildren." And when my dad sees my son, he says, "Well, I guess I did something right." And I thank God for that, because that means my grandparents did something right. And I just thank God for being able to experience that with my grandfathers. They're both in heaven right now. I know they're having fun. They both went out with a bang. They had no issues or anything. And I know my dad right now, he's enjoying his time. I love and appreciate all the fathers that are here that pour into. And right before I put down the mic, I want to say something my grandfather told me, is that whether you have an actual blood son or not, because again, my grandfather was not my blood grandfather, you can still be a father. And the word of God dictates that. It's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Thank you, Trevor. And so you didn't use this word, but one of the things that comes through there is the humility of heart. The one that's not bringing attention to oneself, but is seeing the fulfillment in the lives of others. You hear how that example of the connection into other people. Well, in this account, the story of Jesus that June read, there's this incredible father who has these sons. And the youngest son is the one that says, "I want my half of your inheritance now." You usually get the inheritance when your father dies, right? So he's basically saying, "I wish you dead, Dad. I want your stuff rather than relationship with you." Hardly the kind of response that makes a father proud in the moment, wouldn't you think? So the father is building into him, but the son's not getting it. It doesn't change what the message is. The problem is in the ears of the hearer and the life experience that has to happen. So in all places, the son finally gets this fact when he's in the depth of not just, humility is being built into him because he's in a place of humiliation. As a Jewish son, he is feeding pigs. If you get that kind of connection there, that you don't want to be touching that kind of unclean animal, and he's there and saying, "The pigs have it better than me." So, that courage that happens right there is when he began to catch the message of what his father was giving him, right? It's easy for us to say, well, the society gives bad influences. He got caught up in the wrong crowd. There's this story, another story that Jesus told of two people that went up to the temple to pray. And the one was the one with all the religious degrees and had his act all together. And he goes up and says, "God, I thank you that you made me special. I'm really something. I'm not like this ordinary riffraff, especially not like that tax collector over there." Because those tax collectors, they are part of us. They are Israeli people, but they have been traitors to their country because they're working for the oppressor. And so I'm glad I'm not like them. Aren't I wonderful? Aren't you lucky to have me, God? And then the other person says, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." And it's that humility of heart that God hears. It's at that place of openness that God begins to respond. He says, my son, I can take you from there where you're ready to receive, when you're able to let me shape your identity and call you into who you are supposed to become. You heard that in Trevin as well, right? Praising you, saying yes to those good things that are happening in your life, calling you into being a man. That's when the kingdom of God is present, and it starts with that humility of heart. Larry has a testimony of his father.
Good morning. My mom used to tell me I could talk and talk and talk, and I can. You know, during the prayer breakfast, when Glenn was talking about people to speak about their father, he said, how long you got? I can go from 30 seconds to 2 hours. He said, closer to 30 seconds. I've been working on it. I got underneath an hour. But it may surprise some of you that know me. I was not a well-behaved child growing up. I seemed to get in a lot of trouble from those notes coming home from the teachers because, you know, in class when the teacher was talking and there was a pause, I thought it was my responsibility to fill in with some humor. They didn't see it that way. So I'd get, no matter how many, I'd get those notes, my mom would say, wait till your father gets home. Oh, that was the longest 2 hours of my life. But no matter how many of those notes came home and many of the stupid things I did, my dad never lost his cool. He stayed calm that whole time. He used to say, now, Larry, I used to envy the kids that had to go out and get a switch and come in and get a whooping. It was done in 2 minutes. I had to sit there and listen for 20, 30 minutes to this man talk. And then when I got to be a teenager, you know, teenagers talk back. I did too. And he'd go for a while, and all of a sudden he'd get that look. And you knew when that look came, it was time to shut up. Just put your tail between your leg and go between your room. My kids told me I got that look, so I don't know how I got that, but I did. Second thing, some of you heard me, I grew up in a little small farm town, a little conservative Baptist church, heavily on the conservative, no card playing, no dancing, no movie, King James only version Bible, because that's what Jesus used. But if you went to this church, you would see my mom playing the organ, and you'd definitely see my dad leading us singing. And when he sang, he had those arms going down like that, and he could hold it out there. When the roll is called up yonder. Had a beautiful tenor voice. But when he sang, his whole face lit up. You could tell he loved Jesus, and he believed in everything he was singing. And he got everybody in there in that. The last couple of years of my dad's life, he had a series of strokes. They put him in a nursing home. The last one, about a year before he died, was the big one, and he left his whole left side paralyzed. And he very rarely woke up. Anytime I was up there, he was sleeping the whole time. The church I was attending up there, once a month used to send out somebody to the shut-ins to give them a little message and give them communion. And so this one Sunday, Jackie was on the worship team. I was on the worship team up there. She was assigned my dad. After church, she said, you can be at the nursing home? I said, yep. She said, I'll be there in about half hour, 45 minutes. This particular day, I had my granddaughters, Brianna, Jordan, and Dylan. Those of you who have been attending a while used to know who Brianna and Jordan was. They came here a long time. So we came in, and I tried to wake my dad. He wasn't getting up. So Jackie came, and I told her, well, he's not waking up today. She says, well, let's sing a couple songs. Oh, the girls lit up because they knew shout to the Lord, Lord, I lift your name on high, and they knew all the motions, you know. Power and majesty, praise to the King. And so we sang those 2 songs, and then there was a pause, and we heard a little rumble. We looked down, my dad had got his arm out. He had one finger up. He put a smile on his face. His eyes were still closed, but he sang, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. That is the last song I ever heard my dad sing. He died just a few weeks later. But even though he's a physically broken man, he went from 230 to 113 pounds. He still loved Jesus. And in that deep coma and that deep sleep, he could still smile and sing. Thank you, Dad. I love you and miss you.
So thank you, Larry. And in that account of Larry's dad, one thing that stands out is that the identity of the dad was not affected by the behavior of the son. The perspective was not altered. He knew his core, he knew his identity, and he was focused on the long-range view, right? That's like the dad in this story. In verse 20, when the son returns home to his father, it says, well, he was still a long way off. We're at verse 20, if we can have that up. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. So while he's still a long way off, the father saw him. The father wasn't kicking back in his man cave, saying, well, that son is dead to me. I don't remember him anymore. But he was looking for him. He was expecting him. He's like, someday he will be back. He still is important in my life, even though he's not having any regard for me right now, right? So he's still a long way off. The father was looking for him, and then the father actually puts himself out quite a bit, because it says he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. Perhaps you've already heard this story extrapolated and know that one of the startling things about this that Jesus is saying is that adult Jewish men did not run. That shows that there's something that's more important than you. And you were the one that the world was built around, right? And so the fact that the father says, this relationship is more important to me than my dignity. My identity is filled up with how I relate into this person rather than my standing in society. I'm willing to be looked at and to be questioned because of what I'm investing into this person. So while he was still a long way off, the father sees you. He looks for you. He comes running to you. He doesn't stand at the gate and say, it's 50-50, I'm going to make you come to me. But you turn and you look at his face, and the father's running to embrace you, saying, my life has always been open for you. When you're ready to receive me and take me on, that is the joy of my heart. We have one more testimony, and it's from Alonzo.
Thank you. All right, how my dad relates, how my experience with my dad relates to God. I would have to say in being a provider. So growing up, my dad was a soldier. He was in the Army for about 20-something years. And anytime we needed something, we might not have had all the money in the world, but he would go out and provide and make sure we were good to go. We had the money we needed. So either taking more work or more shifts or something like that, or finding something that he knew how to fix and turn around and sell. I remember going out on Saturdays and looking for broken washers and dryers, and he knew how to fix those. He knew how to turn around and fix the problems that they had back in the day, where it wasn't all electronic, it was more mechanical, and be able to turn around and sell that and get money to do whatever his family needed. So he wasn't big on hugs and I love yous and stuff, but his love language was providing and things for our family. So just growing up, seeing my dad do that, I know that, our Father in heaven, who is our Father, will provide. So it's kind of put me in a place where I don't worry if I need something from God, that God will provide, because my dad always provided for us. So that was a great example, and that's something that is embedded in me as well. Now I have a family, I have a wife. So, that's the story of my dad. And he's still here. I was talking in the past tense, but since I don't live with him anymore. But, he's still great, and I love him. So that's how I relate to my dad and the Lord.
Thank you. So this father is a provider as well. The father, of course, gives the son his portion of the estate, first of all. But probably the more significant provision is when the son returns. because the father doesn't stand there and say, well, yeah, you can have back, you can have your old room back, but I mean, you spent your wad, you know, I mean, it's like you got to live in that consequences, right? But he comes back and he says, here's my son, here's the finest clothes. Let's celebrate with a feast. We'll take the choicest of meat, this fatted calf, and we'll celebrate. We'll give him fine clothes. We will give him this identity of the son that he is. We'll be providing for him. That's what the Father does for us, right? Your heavenly Father says, here's the identity that I want you to have. I clothe you in my righteousness. I give you my identity. I'm calling you back and saying, yes, you belong in my family. The son's idea is, I'll work my way in. I'll be a servant. I'll serve you. I'll earn it. And the father saying, I'm having none of that. You are my child. You sit at my table. You take of the best of what I have, because that is the identity of my children. Don't earn it. Don't try to get it. We serve out of that abundance because we have that unconditional love of the Father. The son was dead, the Father says, and now's returned to life. He was lost, but now he's been found. And the party began. So we have one more testimony today. And this is a testimony of a father who is making this statement today in an act of baptism, who's joining with the son with this declaration and saying, the son was dead and now is alive again. He was lost and is found. Can we have the mic up here? I just want to talk with this man a little bit here. Good to see you here, Dima.
Oh, for me too.
Yeah. And you've been in this country about 6 months, you've told me.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so what was your first time here at CCF?
Oh, it's in CCF.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because I come here to the English class. To be in English class, I meet Pastor Kia. She meet me, she hug me, she say, oh, come here, and we can help you because you don't know language. Yes, you need help. And this was my first remember from CCF.
Good.
Yeah.
And your very first event was Thanksgiving Day, is that right?
Yeah. When I come to America first, but I remember in United
Okay.
States, it's a happy Thanksgiving Day meal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. So he knows about food, so he fits right in, right?
Yeah, I love food.
Okay. So in these 6 months that you've been here, as you've been relating with us, how has the way that you see God and relate with God, how has that changed?
Oh, it was very interesting because in my previous life, sorry for my English, Miss June helped me. First that I remember what I remember about religion in my previous life is peoples who use religion for their own interest. And I think you all remember these guys who tell, oh, I need something good, God, please help me. And after that, they see they need something bad thing, and they, oh, God, please stay away for a few seconds. I need this bad thing. I want to forget about you for a few seconds. And that's why I was in a long distance from religion. All my life. I'm 40 now. So then I come here, I saw people who want help without some pay. It was Pastor Akia, it was Miss June, it was Pastor Glenn, and I speak with them and I think, oh, they help me, how can I pay for it? By myself, it was my thing. And I come here and I say, Pastor Glenn, how can I help you? And he told me, oh, we have a food point, we given a food, we need help with some hard work in this gym. So, and I come here and I start helping, and they invite me to entry point. They tell me more about religion, about these walls, about this church. And I think, how can I teach the God way? Or I can teach it from the people who try to use religion, or I can teach it from the people, learn it from the people who want to be, not use religion, but be useful. So I think my choice is clear.
Yeah, and so we talk about giving the control and the leading of your life to Jesus.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And your entry point into this has been your admiration for self-sacrificing love, right?
Yeah.
And so just talk about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because in my job, by my work, I am director, theater director, and I
Theater director.
Oh, sorry, and I research stories, and I try to know how story makes. How we can make story. And it's interesting thing that in all fairy tales, magic fairy tales in the world, in the whole world, in the center of this story is a story about man who must die, who must rise, and in this way he is growing up. So it's interesting that in all stories, in all magic stories in the world, we have a Jesus story. So it's very interesting for me, and that's why I want to live in this way. It's our nature way, I think.
And so, yeah. So it's saying that God has planted this redemptive story into each one of us. And through fairy tales, we're seeking for it. And now we find it, the truth, the reality in who Jesus is. So on that basis, we're going to baptize him in just a bit. Let's have the worship team come forward, and we'll go into worship, and then we'll do the baptism in just a few.